Hello, welcome back once again to our countdown to Christmas. It's now the 15th of December, we're almost there, 10 days till Christmas, and we've got another video for you, and we're very simply asking what would you pick, and we're getting a Necron unit up against a Space Marine unit from the Codex. Now before we get into this video, just please remember to subscribe so that you're not going to be missing out on any future content. We have mentioned a few times now, but the videos are going to be more improved in the new year once our studio is in place. And we're going to be doing advanced tactics as well as going over the chapter approved stuff when that comes out early next year. So back to this video, we've got Team Necrons versus Team Space Marines, and currently the scores are 7 apiece. It's closer than I actually thought. Could be partly due to that core keyword changing for us Necron players, who knows. But today we've got the Canoptek Wraiths versus the Vanguard Veterans. Now I'm a big fan of both of these units. Let's see how they do when they're compared to one another. So with the Canoptek Wraiths, they're 35 points a model. Now the Vanguard Veterans are only 19 points a model, but what I've done here to balance this off, I've given them the jump pack, the storm shield, as well as a power fist, so that will actually come to a total of 35 points, which will match the Canoptek Wraiths point costs. So we've got 5 comparison topics today, like we've done in the previous videos, and each one of these units is going to win the topic. So if you've yet to check those out, there'll be a link in the top right of the screen right now to click on the playlist and go from video number 1, which is the 1st of December, and work your way through them. Beginning with the first topic, which is going to be the stat line. This is purely the stat line only, so don't think about any of the abilities when we're talking about the stats. For example, yes, Shock Assault does give you an additional attack in the first round of combat for the Space Marines, but it's not a pure stat, so we're not talking about that at this stage. So I've just put here that the movement will have changed to a 12-inch movement for the Vanguard Veteran because we've already given them the jump packs to balance off the points as previously mentioned. And likewise, they're going to have a 2+ armor save because we've already brought the storm shields for them. Now with the Wraiths, the weapon skill and ballistic skill value is a 4+ as opposed to a 3+, so it is slightly worse, but you do get a toughness value of 5 and an extra wound to compensate for that, and you actually get 2 additional attacks. So when you're doing the averages for the attacks, when you're hitting on 4s, you should be getting 2 hits there, whereas with 2 attacks for the Vanguard Veterans hitting on 3s, on average you're getting 1.3 hits there, so the average is slightly less, just purely due to the amount of attacks they get in comparison to a Canoptek Wraith. Again, this is before Shock Assault or any of the additional weapons that give you more attacks. This is purely stats. So the Canoptek Wraiths are going to be winning this point, and just to solidify that, the actual base for the units are slightly bigger at 50mm as opposed to 32mm. So they're going to be getting into those buffs from your characters much easier, and of course it's going to deny more space for enemy units. So that point is going to the Canoptek Wraiths. Now in terms of abilities, Canoptek Wraiths of course have got all the standard Necron stuff, the living metal to regain a lost wound, command protocols which they're likely going to be using because they're going to now be alongside one of those character units, purely because they're a core unit now. They also got the reanimation protocols, which isn't as useful for them because they got 3 wounds apiece. They've then got the slinking strike ability, so they're eligible to shoot and declare a charge even though they've fallen back. Then finally with the Wraith form ability, they've got the 4+ invulnerable save, and they can make movements through models and terrain features as if they were not there. So it's effectively like having the fly keyword, except they don't have the fly keyword, so they can't be attacking aircraft for example, but it's almost as good there. Now with the Vanguard Veterans abilities, you've got to add the storm shield here. We've already paid for that. It's a 4+ invulnerable save, and they're going to get a +1 to their armor saving throw made for the bearer. They've then got that jump back ability as mentioned, so they've got the 12-inch movement, but they've also got the death from above ability, which is effectively deep strike, and they can fly as well as get the jump back keywords. Then on top of that, they've got the Angels of Death ability, so all the abilities there are going to have some sort of use, whether it's Shock Assault, Combat Doctrines, and Thou Shalt Know No Fear. Not so much the bolter discipline because they're not going to have rapid fire bolt weapons. They've then got the combat squad, so if you take a max unit you can divide them up into half during deployment, and they work independently from one another, so a little bit of flexibility there. For me, I think this one's a tie. Being able to fall back and shoot and then charge I think is a big ability. You're effectively always going to be fighting first, especially with the speed that they've actually got to begin with. They're always going to make the charge first, but those Vanguard Veterans with that deep strike ability I think is massive. It's going to almost get them anywhere they want to go from turn 2 onwards. So for me that one's a draw. As for damage output, with the Canoptek Wraiths, they've got the Vicious Claws or the Whip Coil, so the Vicious Claws are strength 6, -2 AP and 2 damage, and you want to be using this against 2 wound models, for example Intercessors, because you're going to get 4 attacks per Wraith, which on average will hit 2 times, which will cause 1.3 wounds before any armor saves are made. Now if you want to be using the Whip Coils, you want to be doing that against 1 wound models, ideally models that don't have a high toughness or a decent armor save, and you're going to get double the amount of attacks with this, so you're going to get 8 attacks per Wraith, which is going to give you 4 hits, and cause around 2.7 wounds on average, and that's per Wraith before saves are made. You've then got options of taking some range attacks with the Particle Casters or the Transdimensional Beamers. I'd only really put those Particle Casters on if you've got points permitting and you've already filled out on Scarab units. Now with the Vanguard Veterans, I've already put the Power Fist on as mentioned at the beginning of the video. And if you were to take the exact same example we used with the Canoptek Wraiths going against intercessors with your 3 attacks when you add 1 for shock assault, you're going to get 1.5 hits on average there because you're going to now be hitting on 4s. So that's going to cause 1.25 wounds on average. Now if you were to take those power fists and go against vehicles or monsters, for example, with strength 8, with your 3 attacks again 1.5 hits on average, you'll cause around 1 wound there. But that's of course just coming from one single Vanguard veteran. Now those Vanguard veterans have got melee options if you wanted to take a different option, which are slightly cheaper apart from that Thunder Hammer. So if you wanted to go anti-horde, you got your lightning claws, your power swords for example. So there's lots of different ways to kit out these guys. And similarly, you've also got the added pistols with the grav pistols and the plasma pistols if you wanted to. It's probably not worth taking the pistol options, but they're there if you want. But for me, just because of the fact that they can go against toughness 7 or toughness 8 vehicles and monsters, as well as everything else that the Canoptek Wraiths can handle, I'm giving the point to the Vanguard veterans. Now in terms of synergy, there's always loads of synergy with core units. For the dynasties for the Canoptek Wraiths, the 2 that I would use are the Novak dynasty to get the +1 to the charge roll and an extra bit of AP on the charge, or the Nihilak dynasty because they're going to be quite resilient with objectives secured, making them pretty hard to shift off an objective. They're going to work very well with a Catacomb Command barge because they match the speed of that barge, and the barge is going to give them +1 to their hit roll, so they'll be hitting on 3s. And they're also going to have an additional 1-inch movement. They'll actually be moving at 13 inches as opposed to 12. You could take a Technomancer, that's also going to roughly match the speed, not quite as quick, but he can be bringing models back with his Rites of Reanimation ability because of course Canoptek Wraiths have got the core keyword now, so bringing one of those back for 35 points each and every battle round is pretty decent. And the 2 added upgrades that a Technomancer can take, either the Canoptek Cloak to bring back D3 lost wounds to a Wraith each turn, or the Control Node to +1 to the attacker's hit roll, although that will not stack if you're taking a Command Barge as well with the My Will Be Done ability because it will be capped on a +1 or a -1. Then similarly you got Luminous Ares, he can bring a model back. In fact he can do it a few times per turn, but it won't be on the same unit. But he can also augment core units that are within range. Now the result is randomised, but getting a +1 to your strength or a +1 to your toughness is pretty decent. And if you took those particle casters, you're going to get a +1 to your ballistic skill as well. So all 3 of them are somewhat useful for a Canoptek Wraith unit. Then you've got the Silent King, he's got all sorts of shenanigans with core units to be able to reroll hit rolls and moon rolls and all that kind of jazz. He's still got the Relentless Marcher as well as the My Will Be Done ability, and he can be using that on 2 different units, but again, not the same unit there. Stratagem wise, you've got the Disruption Fuel stratagem, so you can add 1 to the strength characteristics of the models, and the Enslave Protectors ability because they got the Canoptek keyword, so they can actually heroically intervene as if they were a character. Now the Vanguard veterans, they can be used in all sorts of Space Marine chapters here. I listed most of them that I'd probably use with the Vanguard veterans. I'm not going to go through all the abilities and chapter tactics of why, but if you're playing any of those chapters I'm sure you'll know why. But plenty of synergy there. There's also jump pack characters, so for example you can get a jump pack on a captain to get the Rites of Battle Aura, so you'll be able to reroll hit rolls of a 1 for your Vanguard veterans. Or you can take a jump pack on a chaplain and use a Litany of Hate, so you can be rerolling all the hit rolls in melee. And furthermore you can be using a jump pack on a librarian model and be using the Veil of Time psychic ability to be able to reroll the charge roll, the advance roll, or just be able to fight first in combat. Now of course that will slightly match up to what the Canoptek Wraiths can do with their Slinking Strike ability, but this will be a librarian tax on top of this. Now Vanguard veterans have also got some stratagems up their sleeve, so if you've got the jump pack Vanguard veterans, you can use the Hammer of Wrath stratagem for a command point to be throwing out mortal wounds, and they've also got the Melter Bomb keyword, so if you're going up against a vehicle, you can make the vehicle suffer 2d3 mortal wounds on a single attack there. So I'm going to be sitting on the fence again with this one and give the point to both of these units. Then finally we're on to the resiliency. Now I know we've already spoke about the stats and abilities and whatnot, but I'm kind of putting this all together here. So the toughness 5 on the Wraiths and the extra wound on the Wraiths is massive, but you do have to remember that the Vanguard veterans have got that storm shield, so they're going to have a 2+ armor save, but when push comes to shove they've not got living metal, so they're not going to be regaining a lost wound each turn. And 3 wound models in general are pretty good, especially going against damage 2 weapons or damage D3 weapons. They're just surviving a lot longer, so for me the Wraiths are getting that point. So all in all I've scored this 4 points to 3 in favour of the Canoptek Wraiths. It's a very close matchup, both of them are very decent units, it just wasn't the Vanguard veterans day today. So that puts Team Necrons up yet again, it's now 8 points to 7. Let's see what tomorrow brings. So guys, in the comments below put how you would have scored this one and explain your reasoning, and remember to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Thank you all for watching and I'll see you tomorrow.